Welcome back. Welcome in. It's Country Roads Confidential at earsports.com. It's a Paramount podcast. I am Mike Casazza here with Chris Anderson on a Monday morning. Chris, we're not going to do questions and answers this morning. I took a bunch on Saturday when you were missing in action. Glad to see you're healthy, back on your
Yeah,
feet, able to chip in today. We're going to cover a bunch of bases, kind of catch up in the football game, look ahead to some basketball, some football too, of course, and try to make sense out of what is or isn't happening with basketball. But I guess let's begin where we did not leave off Saturday. West Virginia kind of just ho hums a win, which you shouldn't say anything bad about, but 31-21 was a 28-7 game at one point. Doesn't really get too nerve wracking. Even Neil Brown says that the game was never in danger, even though that I don't know. I look up at the board and you're guarding a 10-point lead with 6 minutes left. Been there before, seen that happen, but he was chill about it too, which I guess is a good sign. What me worry. Boy, if Neil Brown of all people can have that demeanor right now, we all should, right?
absolutely. And I'll tell you, Mike, I did not listen to your podcast, not because I didn't want to listen to your podcast, but because I knew we were going to talk about this on Monday. So I'm trying to come in fresh. Like, I don't want what you thought to influence what we talk about, at least until you start talking in a minute. But
Mm.
my immediate thought was kind of feel like is where you're heading here. And I took a cue off of a post that you made during the game. Um, It was something along the lines of, well, one, you texted me and you're like, WVU could put up 50 today. The way things started and the way things looked, and your view from the press box was like, holy, like UCF's defense is bad, WVU's offense is rolling. And then it was 28-7. And I believe you posted on the board at that exact moment. West Virginia could win this game 28 to 20 or whatever, 28 to 17, but they shouldn't. They should try to win 50-7. Something along those lines of they should push it. And they didn't.
Mm.
And I'm with you. It just felt like, and I get it. That's kind of been Neil Brown's thing. I mean, there was even what was I think that was a Kansas State game a couple years ago where it was 21-0, whatever. And they were just like, yeah, there's zero chance. It was a Kansas State or TCU. Like, there's zero chance this team's going to score. So we're just completely foot off the gas, meat and potatoes, handoffs, and sitting on the ball. And, I don't want to say there's a time and a place for that, but man, does the game not feel underwhelming a little bit after it's 28-7, you're doing whatever you want. And then it ends 31-21 with, yeah, he says it wasn't a problem. The ESPN play-by-play winning percentage was never dropped below 93%, I think, after the
Huh.
28-7 lead. But but has West Virginia lost a game where they were up 10 with 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter? Has that happened
Yeah, doesn't.
recently, Mike?
Yeah, I just thought watching early, they looked good on offense, and you just kind of felt like the whole home crowd juice, whatever you want to say, but like it just felt like they weren't going to be denied that game. They had a bunch going, and just moreover, like UCF was not going to do or would not do or could not do what it should have done, tried to do earlier against that defense, just not built that way. And I think I just thought like Neil was very happy to win this game 31-14. I think that was my comment. But like, yeah, man, just felt like tough season for everybody. And you got a lot of gas here you can use. So go for it. Just win the game. Have a lot of fun along the way. If it gets hairy, okay, fine. But try to do something a little bit different, a little bit unique. It almost felt like he was somebody who's trying to put like one more clip in the portfolio. Just like here's another example of my work. And fine that again, that's control the margins and make sure you stay out of trouble. Those are good things when they've done well before. They've kind of played that way. That's the way they wanted to win the game, I guess. They won the game. They needed a win. I understand that. That's all that really matters. My observation during the game is just that could have been more fun, could have been more eventful. Doesn't really matter. That's an aesthetic or just a accessory to the game. The win is far more important because you get six. It's not a loss. Could have been a lot worse had they messed it up. Just felt like they could have been more aggressive. But I think once they get in their lane, they're going to do 55, and you're going to have to find a way to pass them. And it's kind of a retrofitted version of the offense. That's not what you thought it would be. That's kind of what it's become, and it protected the defense and it made sure that if you punt a couple times, you don't get points or whatever. maybe it gets a little bit crazy, but having the ball for the final, what, 6 minutes of the game, going for it on fourth down, that was kind of fun. But it also meant that that was kind of like what colored everything in for me. Just didn't want to have the defense. Look what happened to Arizona late in that game. Like Arizona just said, you know, we're gonna throw deep. Let's see what happens. And like UCF had three or four 20-yard plays on one drive through the air. You had a feeling that the game plan at that point, get the ball back and air it out and try to go. But recover the onside kick, short field, hold on the ball the whole time. I get it. Just wasn't very fun.
The other thing that stood out to me, winning the middle eight,
Mhm.
last four of the first four of the second. I don't feel like West Virginia has done that very often. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the fact that your streak came to an end or that your streak existed tells me that, because they start with the game with the ball, they're often not going to start the second half of the ball more than often, always. Um, which is makes it difficult to win the middle eight if you're not getting it for
Yeah.
half of that time. They did this time. It was a struggle to get in the end zone right there before half. I thought that was an amazing Rodney Gallagher catch. Again, I tweeted it was like, I don't think the average fan understands just how difficult that was. Looking over one shoulder, realizing the ball was thrown to the other shoulder, flipping it around and catching it without that was a great catch.
Mhm.
And then to come out 5 plays, 56 yards, touchdown, no problem. That's kind of again that pushed it from 14-7 to 28-7. And that's the difference. That's why that middle eight of the game, the last four of the first half, first four of the second half is so important. West Virginia finally wins that. And yeah, that's probably why they were able to kind of just cruise from then on out.
Guys, do a screen share. Oh, I can't do a screen share with you. The photo from because you have the controls here. The photo that Ben Queen got for USA Today of Gallagher making the catch in the end zone, it's incredible. Like it's
Yeah.
his eyes are one way, the ball's in his left hand. He's past the defender. His right hand isn't anywhere near the ball. It's kind of like almost like a trust fall kind of catch. Like you run the route, and you just, all right, let me put my hand there. Perfect spot, perfect catch, and again, probably one of the better plays he's made at West Virginia. I think it's a second touchdown, but they kind of got him involved in a couple ways. Wasn't anything dramatic or spectacular, but to throw him that ball there, that was good. Tough play, like you said, and
Kind of
how and
kind of
how
the
many like,
opposite of the touchdown pass attempt to Traylon Davis.
bad throw or bad catch?
Get him in the hands.
Yeah,
I mean, I
saw a
think
lot of
it,
that. Like
it might
saw a
it
lot of the
wasn't the
whole
best
Green's got to
touch. It
make
might have
that
been a little
easier.
quick, but right in the hands.
Yeah,
Sorry, I
that's
didn't mean to
that's.
just have strays for Traylon Davis while we're talking about Rodney Gallagher, but
Mhm.
that was stuck out in my mind of the difference between two different quote unquote receivers.
Yep, yeah, exactly.
So,
Do you want to know the math,
um,
Chris?
hmm?
You want to know the math?
Math of what?
Conference championship game.
Oh God, go ahead.
West Virginia
You
wins.
know what? Hey, I'm disappointed in you because I saw somebody posted a flow chart, which is amazing. It was outstanding. It really made it all clear on how West Virginia can get there. Have you seen that?
No, I just have extremely like serial killer etchings in a notebook.
Yeah.
Arrows, chicken scratch. It's beautiful. It's ugly though too.
There was a flow chart, and I think there was like 31 or whatever, some ungodly amount of different scenarios. And it's like that Avengers Endgame thing where it's like how many, I saw a billion different futures. And how many did we win? One. And that's what this one's like. There's however many different ways, and the only way West Virginia there's two different ways West Virginia gets in that requires like five or six different things to happen. See if I can find that real
Oh,
quick.
really? Two ways. Okay. I only had one route. They have to win Arizona over Arizona State, Houston over BYU, Kansas over Baylor. I think TCU has to beat Cincinnati and then Oklahoma State over Colorado. And then in that case, it's the champion is going to be the Iowa State or Kansas State winner, and West Virginia has all the tiebreakers no matter what. It's wild, and the odds are, Chris, on if you do that parlay, the odds are like plus 103,281 or something like that. So,
Put it
if
in.
you're looking for supplemental income, I can't bet on, it, of course, but like somebody could. Just $1 would make you like $1,000 or something like that. Great odds there.
All right,
Probably
here you
not going
go.
to happen.
So
In
this
fact,
is based off of that flow chart. So first
okay,
off, Oklahoma State has to win. So
Friday, right?
Yeah, Friday. So you should get that answer pretty soon. Like that should happen quickly. And then Kansas must beat Baylor.
Hmm.
Okay. So we come up West Virginia must win. So that's a no doubter. According to this, looking here, Arizona, Arizona must win.
Hmm.
TCU, Cincinnati technically doesn't matter, according to this flow chart. Is that right?
Mm.
No, no, that's not right. So
You want to knock
TCU
Cincinnati
must
out,
win.
yeah.
TCU must win. Kansas State, Iowa State does not matter,
That's the one.
which I think you just said, right?
Utah, UCF doesn't matter either.
Yeah, Utah, UCF doesn't matter. Kansas State, Iowa State doesn't matter. And then if Oklahoma State, Kansas, West Virginia, Arizona, and TCU all win, West Virginia's in. Because according to this, then it comes down to Houston, BYU. And if Houston wins, then it's West Virginia, Kansas State. And if, oh, no, no. What am I looking at here? Oh,
Yeah.
Kansas
Houston
State
has
and
to beat
Iowa
BYU.
State doesn't matter. So yeah, so Houston has to be BYU.
Yeah.
But if Kansas State wins over Iowa State, then West Virginia would face Kansas State. If Houston wins, or if Iowa State wins, then West Virginia would face Iowa State. Yeah, I think so. Basically, what you said, I just made it longer and more complicated.
But he has the visual. I just had the verbal. So
Yeah,
the
he
flow
does
chart
have
is
the visual.
important.
So Oklahoma State, Kansas, West Virginia, Arizona, TCU, Houston.
6 game parlay, Chris. And then we retire.
Did you get the odds on what had to happen this past weekend for it to work?
No.
Because it was several upsets. Like, I mean, it had to be Kansas over,
Hmm.
um, had to be Kansas, right? It had to be Arizona State, which I don't even, was Arizona State even an underdog?
It might have been. They probably should have been. Right. At home, though, I'm not sure. I know that I thought that I was pretty sure that Kansas State or Iowa State had to lose, but that's not true, obviously, because they both won. They're still alive, West Virginia. But that come when in that scenario, it goes down to a deep tiebreaker. Like West Virginia wins because of the record it has against the teams that are tied for second place have all played. And it's like 4-0 too, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So like they won the games they should have won. Everybody says, "Oh, you could have won Iowa State, you could have won Kansas State." Sure, could have, but they still won the games they needed to win. If we come into this very bizarre multi-team second place tiebreaker,
Have you done the what if scenario? If they had just
that's all I've
won
done
one of
lately,
those,
Chris.
if they had just won one of the games,
They break all the ties for first or
they
for
have
second for
they
sure.
control their own destiny, right?
They'd be a two loss right now, right?
They'd be 6-2 with Colorado. Well, I mean, depends. I guess if they beat Iowa State, then Iowa State would be out. But
Yeah, they would have had to beat Iowa State or Kansas State to have that scenario because uh actually beating Baylor's a 3 loss team. So yeah, they would have that, yeah. So
yeah,
they would have had to
if
beat
they had
Kansas State
beaten
or Iowa
Iowa
State.
State, I think they control their own destiny, basically.
It's a lot easier.
Close to it. Yeah, that'll make fans happier. Let's talk
Can't we
about the
all
what ifs,
unite? Just
huh?
just root for something here. Like if let's get interesting Friday night. If Oklahoma State beats um Colorado. And look, Deion Sanders has never beat Mike Gundy. Just don't
Is
argue
that
with that.
0
Like
for
I'm
1
telling you,
or 0 and
it's a
0?
fact. Yeah. So we'll see what happens there. A lot going on.
That'll be great. Like Friday, 3 p.m. All of a sudden, everybody's getting a little riled up because Oklahoma State's pulled off the upset,
Hmm.
and it really starts happening. The rumblings start coming through Morgantown.
Hmm.
Some some other beat writers like, hey, did you guys know West Virginia has a chance to make it to the Big 12 championship game?
What happened? Let's see here. Colorado hasn't beaten Oklahoma State since 2005.
There you go.
Just saying.
Is that the last time they played?
No, they played in 8, 9, and 16 as well.
Oh, okay. All right. Just checking.
So, but I mean, we're talking about like 19 game winning streak here, or 19-year undefeated streak, Chris.
There you go.
One coach never lost the other in 19 years. I mean, not telling you what to do with your money. Make it interesting.
All
Speaking
right.
of interesting, Let's talk about the cloud above the program. You want to do that?
Yeah, sure.
You don't want to do that.
Yeah,
I think is why
I'd love
everybody's
to.
tuned in because they're expecting us to have some news or what have you about Neil Brown decision made, not made. I can't tell you that. If I knew, you would know, and I just don't know it to be true. Um, you want to go over the Friday night note that you said I could have teased a little bit better with the clickbait online?
Yeah, I mean, who makes a post that just says a Friday night note and that's it? Come on.
You were curious.
I clicked on
So
it.
here,
I
this
knew what
is
it was, but
this is kind of Friday. It was just the encapsulation of just kind of talking to a lot of people during the week and over the last couple of weeks. And anybody who's followed the percentages or the conversations we've had, the things I've written or we've discussed, one major obstacle toward making a change has been the financial situation, the revenue sharing coming. If you make a coaching change, it's going to be hard for West Virginia to go all the way with both. You could do one or the other, I would think, but it's going to be hard to do both. And there's just this kind of apprehension that if you at some point weeks and weeks and weeks ago, if you had to make a change, you could tolerate a 5-7 or a 6-6 coach. Certainly harder at 5-7 and 6-6, but I don't think that a 5-7 was automatic a couple of weeks ago. A whole lot's changed. It hasn't gotten better. There's been some bizarre moments and sound bites and performances. Everything that you've seen has happened. I understand that. But along the lines, I just think the thinking has changed and the conversations no longer went from can't do it because the money to, well, it's a bad situation. You might have to fix it. Just it evolves over time. And then just last week, the feedback I got was that West Virginia knew that if it had to make a change, it could not be held back by something else. So if if the if the worry was, gee, I'd like to make this change, but we just can't afford it because I've been told that, that wasn't going to be the marching orders given. It was going to be, if you got to do it, you got to do what's right for the program, the athletic department, the university, and then you deal with the other stuff later. That's pretty much all I said on this stuff. Um, I don't like, someone asked me in the post game, was like Baker given permission to do it? I don't think that's how that works. Like, I think he's pretty much at the front of all this stuff too, and pretty popular with the board and the administration. I don't think he's in trouble for the contract extension. I don't think he's in trouble for Neil Brown's struggles this year. I just don't get that. So I don't think anybody had to give him permission to say, you can do your job. I just think that there's a difference between saying that and saying, hey man, we got your back. If you feel like there might be a response or a reaction, do not worry about that. And I'm not sure that there was an edict on that. I don't think they had a meeting or a phone call and said that. I just think that people came around to that, and then you start to talk about it more, and whatever prohibitions you have go away. That's about it. Does that mean that they're going to fire him? Does that mean they're going to keep him? Don't know. I think it's probably leaning one way more than the other. Don't have to tell you which one. I could, but I don't have to. Like, I think y'all know that he's in trouble. That's just the facts of the matter right now. But anything about the BOG over the weekend or who was in town or whatever, I think you're trying really hard to put that stuff together and to say that, oh man, the BOG had a meeting and Oliver Luck is in town and then Mike wrote this. That means no, it's not really what happened. There was nothing. There was no meeting where they said, Ren, you're good to go. I just think that that's the way that thinking has changed over time as to if we got a problem, let's solve it. And if you got to do this, don't think like you're going to make anybody mad. Like just the reassurance is that do your job. You're allowed to do your job. That's why we hired you. Does that make sense?
And Mike, what is the key goal of an athletic director for his department?
Sneaker collection. No,
Close. That's
it's
top
not a
three.
bad gig though, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
you
Um,
gotta you gotta profit with winning
yes.
football.
I was gonna say is some people will tell you to win all the sports, to win your football games, to win your basketball games, everything else, have a healthy athletic department, healthy sports, put a good product on the field, et cetera, et cetera. Some other people, some more cynical people, will tell you it's to make money. It's to make sure that you are not losing money at the very least with your department. As any boss of any business, of any section of a business, whatever, has to be. So when he has to make decisions like this, like how many decisions cost more money than hiring and firing a football coach?
A few, yeah. I mean, if you
Um,
decided to give season tickets away for free, That
Like,
would cost you a lot of money, right? But yeah, I mean,
yeah.
this is the big one for sure.
So it would be fiscally irresponsible of him. He would literally be derelict of duty to not be making sure the funds are in place, available, however you want to put it. It's not permission. He's not asking permission. He is making sure that his athletic department is in a fiscally responsible position to make any move that he might want to make. So I know there's going to be people out there going, yeah, that's called getting permission. No, like, it's not. There is a difference. I believe there is a very big difference. And so I think this over the last week or two has been more of a, hey, make sure all the ducks are in a row. If I need to do this, would it be responsible of me as the leader of the athletic department to make this move? And that's where I believe West Virginia is at right now and Ren
Mhm.
Baker.
So with the conversation we had on the donors before, we guessed, I don't know, 8 to 10 major ones. Kind of got confirmation. That's probably not a terrible number. And that's from somebody who might be in that 8 to 10, I think, or
Wait, wait,
wants.
wait. Sorry, not a terrible number as in we made a good guess, or 8 to 10 is pretty normal for
Oh,
no, okay.
for all right, for an industry the size of West Virginia sports, maybe that's not a big enough one that people want, but I think that it was a good guess by us that seemed to be pretty accurate. Now, here's the thing, like I don't know how many I don't know how many of those people are in Ren Baker's orbit. You'd think most of them, right? But let's just say he's got like a top 25, right? I don't know if that's even the case, but just here's my ranked donors. I just do not get the sense that, and this is not a problem, but it's just something I've said before, and it's really, I think it's kind of the same. I don't think that a lot of people are eager to make the change. Just not. Like, are they happy with it? Nah. But I just don't feel like there's a whole lot of this guy stinks, get him out of here. There might be some of that, but it's not this overwhelming outpouring of disgust. And you got people who are just kind of like, it's okay, but what's better? Where can I put my money and all that? And I just can't get past this. It's something that we wrote weeks ago too, Chris, that like the number one thing if you're going to bring your job to market is that you've got to answer questions for agents or the head coach or whomever, like what is going to be your revenue sharing number? And if West Virginia is like 15 this year, that probably won't be the biggest number of the Power Four jobs in the market. If West Virginia is a full 22 next year, if it's 15 this year and 22 next year, you open more doors by saying that you have that money, that extra $7 million, than if you were going to offer a coach 3 million this year and 4 million next year. Like you could offer the coach more money next year. The bigger deal is to have that revenue sharing number. I think that's a huge thing that athletic directors are doing. And again, that's one thing I think you're seeing a lot of Power Four ADs or presidents being really reserved about rushing into coaching changes. A lot of schools are going to have to ease into this or tier themselves into it. Some don't. They're major players in their major conferences. But if you are an ACC or a Big 12 program, let's say, because they're probably the Big 12 and Big 10 and SEC are probably by and large removed from this conversation because they're payouts, most of them. So let's just say you're an ACC or a Big 12 or like a second tier SEC or Big 10 program. You're probably struggling to hit the 22 million this year. It's not going to be easy for you. And if you're trying to make a change, you're probably thinking, man, do I have the best options for who's going to be out there? Don't know. Like, I don't think you're going to see a ton of Power Four changes because I think those same people who don't know what their number is going to be are worried about spending on a coaching change and taking their opportunities away to hit that full revenue sharing number. So it's a complicated calculus. My resolution, my takeaway, I guess, from what I wrote on Friday night was that I just don't think that they can continue to be dragged down by a bad situation. If they think they're in trouble with their football, that's a problem they can fix. Like it's going to take time to do it, and it's going to take expenses to do it, but you can control that one. You really can't control the reality of this new financial world with the revenue sharing and all that stuff. Like that's going to be there no matter what. But you can fix the other problem if you think the football is a problem, and you're not going to be made to deal with two problems because that one is so big. That revenue sharing one is so big.
Let me let me put some numbers on this just so the numbers don't have to be exact. I'm just trying to get a bit, make sure I'm understanding what you're saying correctly and so that our listeners are too. You're the coach. You're the coach. You're the candidate. I'm interviewing you for the WVU job. I'm Ren Baker. I need better shoes. But come to you and I say, Mike, I can give you $6 million a year, but your revenue sharing and NIL is going to be $15 million, or can give you $4 million a year and your NIL and revenue sharing is $22 million. You as a coach, which one are you taking?
I I think that revenue sharing is a huge deal. You've got to
Right?
pay
Because
your
it's
players.
job security basically. Like
Yeah,
it's better chance of you being successful, right?
you've got to pay your players, and like it's not going to be equal to every student athlete on campus, right? So what's going to get the larger slices of the pie? Football, for sure, for sure. So you can make your money later on if you're a good coach. Like, yeah, you're talking about, flicking your nose at 2 million a year. That's tough to do, right? But
Yeah.
you might not have that job very long. And here's the thing too, like West Virginia's not paying a coach 6 million a year.
Well,
And
let's go there. Let's go there now. Because I was just looking that up. It's a conversation we need to have because that's the other part of this. Currently, with the extension, Neil Brown is getting paid $4 million. Now that goes up a couple hundred thousand, couple hundred thousand, couple hundred thousand. But to put that in perspective, there are 68 Power Four teams, 67 plus Notre Dame, if you will. I'm not counting the leftover Pac-12 teams, Pac-2, whatever. Um, West Virginia's Neil Brown ranks currently with 4 million, 54th out of the 61 teams that report their money. So Duke, Boston College, BYU, Syracuse, Stanford, Northwestern, they don't have to report what they pay their coach. So
they're
at the
probably
very
halfway
best,
in the middle of that group too.
yeah. So they're probably around 60th, 58th out of 68 teams in salary. So, oh, his salary goes up a couple hundred thousand. Doesn't matter. You raise it up 200,000, he only moves up two spots. You raise it up 400,000, he only moves up five spots. So we're still talking even a couple years from now. And it's not like everybody else is not getting a raise either. So even if he's getting paid $4.5 million in a couple years, he's still going to be 50th or worst or lower out of 68 coaches at this level of college football. That's now, it may not translate for the wins and losses part of the deal, but that's a deal. You are getting a discount essentially on your head coach if you're West Virginia right now. I'm not saying that's a reason to keep him, but Neil Brown's out the door. What is West Virginia spending? You just said they won't go to six, right? Like that's,
I mean, if
but
you if you get Nick Saban or Jimbo Fisher or like I'm trying to even think of anybody else who's I'm not even sure those are reasonable, but those are reasonable names to have in the conversation. That's probably a $6 million coach. I don't know who else out there is a $6 million coach.
so let me tell you, there's 35 other coaches who are $6 million coaches right now. Not at
Okay,
West
who's
Virginia.
35th? Who's 35th?
35th is Moore up at Michigan.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you're talking 6 million, $6 million. I'll give you the couple below and a couple above. The two at 5.8 is Mike Loxley at Maryland. 5.9, Dave Doran at North Carolina State. Moore at Michigan, 6 million. Shiano at Rutgers, 6.2. And Shane Bieber, it's not Bieber, Shane Beamer, South Carolina at 6.4. And he's the 33rd highest paid coach in college football.
So the outlier there is the ACC coach who has won his way to $6 million a year.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we just went SEC, Big Ten, SEC,
Mhm.
or Big Ten, Big Ten, Big Ten. Yeah.
Could you pluck a sitting coach from the ACC or the Big 12, I guess? Uh, Tough, man. Like they just don't leave those jobs. I think again, nine, I think, is a number. And a power conference head coaches right now who left a power conference job. And you're talking like Brian Kelly and James Franklin and a gamut of guys who left good schools and left schools. And like Scott Satterfield is technically one because Louisville was a group of five and he went to Cincinnati. So you're really stretching to make that number. I think you're looking at a small number of head coaches and then mostly coordinators or even like maybe a random position coach. But if you're in that, and that's not going to be $4 million, or it's not going to be $6 million, you could probably keep your head coaching budget at or below that number, I think. And if you're
So
below, you can pump up your assistant coaching staff and you can make extra additions to the budget, the program, whatever, without feeling too bad about it.
Out of the 15 teams, again, everybody but BYU in the Big 12 that either report their earnings or USA Today. This is from USA Today. They also, if not directly reported, they do report, or excuse me, directly, relayed through tax returns or whatever the financial filings that the schools have to make. They will report it if it's been reported by a source, competently, I suppose. So it's a couple of these schools. I'm like Notre Dame. They don't have to report it, I don't think, and they do on USA Today at least. But out of the 15 schools that do have numbers here in the USA Today database, Neil Brown is 11th out of those 12, 15 Big 12 schools. Think you can guess who's number one?
Hmm.
He's winless
I
in the
was gonna
Big
say, is
12
it
this year.
Gundy? It's probably
It's
Gundy, right? Just
Gundy.
for longevity.
Yeah, he's number one. Lance Leipold number two. I did not know Lance Leipold was number two.
7 million, right?
He's 7.5 according to
Mhm.
this.
And they have big
Um,
NIL money there too.
yeah, and then you drop down to Whittingham, Dion, Kleiman, Dykes, Aranda, Willie Fritz, Joey McGuire, and then Matt Campbell, slightly above Neil Brown, then Neil Brown, and just below him, or even with Neil Brown, is Gus Malzahn. Just below him, Kenny Dillingham at 3.95.
Not for
Scott
long.
Satterfield, huh?
Not for
Not
long
for
with
long. Yeah,
Kenny.
exactly. Scott Satterfield, 3.6. And then Brent Brennan at Arizona at 3.1. So two, I don't know what about steals, but
See,
bargain bargain salaries there at the bottom.
so you're looking at hiring a Dillingham, ideally not a Brent Brennan, but someone like that, a guy who's a coordinator or a head coach at a group of five school, and that's the number you're looking for there. Like those are below $4 million. And I think if you looked at ACC jobs, again, the SEC and Big Ten are different, but I'd have to look at them. But you're looking at coaches who were hired recently. Most of them are going to be coordinators or assistants or group of five coaches because you're not seeing a lot of power four to power four movement. So you're going to have a good idea of what the market rate is. If you're looking at who was added in the last, let's say, two off seasons to the Big 12 and the ACC, that number is probably, I would guess, is probably going to be like around the 4 million range, below, maybe rarely above it, but around that number.
It's big numbers.
Yep. So just to wrap a ribbon on this, right? They did not fly Oliver Luck into town to corner Rem Baker in a room at the Board of Governors meeting and say you're canning Neil Brown. Oliver Luck was supposed to be here, I think, the entire season. There was some meetings and businesses with the trust and WVU. He was in Cleveland with his family during the week, from what I understand. Like that's not a thing. The Board of Governors meeting was regularly planned. That's been on the schedule forever. Can you have conversations around that? Yeah, but I just know people who are around donors and like it doesn't come up. And again, just it's a weird anecdote, but it's true. Like not a ton of people who were like throwing money at Rem Baker and saying fire this guy, and not a ton of people who were like, this guy's great. Just right in the middle, neither an A or an F. Kind of is what it is. But I think the takeaway is that West Virginia knows you can do more harm than good. It's been a long time. Are you expecting things to change just because you're going to hope harder? Probably not the best strategy. So what's the move? If you need to make a move, you make one.
So have you seen the latest rumor on the board? I mean, there's a million of them, but
Probably not.
uh,
So like last night, you and I were just like Sundays. I pretty much do my work and get away a little bit. I might check some
yeah.
things out and answer some questions, but like there was a lot going on last night, and I'm just like I don't hear this or see this. What do I do? So we weren't ducking, but like Sunday's kind of a day I unplug a little bit and try to recover and recharge for what's going to be a busy week here. I'm sure.
So there was a post that Neil Brown is going to announce that today, it's Monday, we're recording this Monday morning. Neil Brown is going to announce during his press conference that he and the school are parting ways at the end of the season. We are definitely not reporting that. That is a no offense to our lovely posters, but a random post on the message board. Percentage chance of that happening?
I mean, you never say never, but like I did see any given Sunday possible. Like, and he's like Nico's going to transfer to his new job with him. I'm going to UMass, and this will be my starting quarterback.
Yeah.
That would be cool. That would be one of the best days in the job for me, just because I've never seen that before. I think it's highly unlikely. Like Houston beats BYU, Arizona beats Arizona State, West Virginia beats Texas
Yeah.
Tech, Oklahoma State beats Colorado. Like that kind of unlikely.
So we just happened to also receive an email yesterday that Neil Brown's press conference was adjusted, was pushed back.
They did it last time though, when he
Yeah,
had
and I'm kidding here because one, my first thought was also in that email. It says that players and assistants are talking after
Mhm.
Neil Brown's thing. They would never, never
Bring him
have the
out.
players talk with the media immediately after an announcement like that. Never. And if they
Hmm.
would, that's a problem.
Again, now I'm kind of rooting for the story here, right? Now unless Chris that he drops the bomb and they say there will be no player interviews, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it just I don't know. Just I mean that lines up with people who would say, well, he's not going to coach Saturday because he knows, but nothing I've heard.
Okay.
It's fun. It's a fun idea. Like
Hey man,
we
I
might go Instagram live at that point. Just be like, hey, look at
yeah,
the chaos.
we've never gone Instagram live, but here we are. Let's
Yeah,
just
let's do
start it
it.
up. Can you monetize that yet? Just right into it? No.
We could probably
Hey,
find a way, right?
the things we're already seeing. I mean, I won't say names, but like my wife was like, I just got a notification from. So I was looking something up, and then it said the Sporting News is reporting so and so said on Twitter that Neil Brown's getting fired on January 1st. And I was like, oh God, it's happening. It's happening. It's
Just be
already
discerning.
happening.
That's all. Be careful who you listen to and where you get your info from. You're free to do what you want. Just be careful.
Uh, shall we pivot to something
I see what you did
else?
there. Yeah. Hey, am I
Wait,
wrong?
no,
Has
no, no,
West
no, no.
Virginia
I'm not
played?
pivoting. I'm not pivoting to the hardwood. We got some recruiting stuff we got to talk about. So, somehow, like, I mean, I do not
Sorry.
envy the guys in the recruiting department that have to try to navigate all of this right now. But
So you want a jump cut, is what you're saying.
there you go. That's
Let's
better.
do it.
All right. Good. Um, West Virginia hosted three official visitors over the weekend. Maybe welcoming a fourth right now. I actually kind of shoot a message over right now, try to figure out if he showed up or not. But three official visitors came to campus, two linemen and a defensive back, Brandon Hamady from Cleveland, Jameer Davis, another lineman from Cincinnati, and Terrell Russell, a defensive back from Columbus. So Ohio. Um, two guys that are committed to MAC schools right now, and a third who I believe was committed to Washington. I'll have to go back and double check that, but some good players that the coaches like, some late bloomers like Russell or Davis was a guy who injured, tore, I believe he blew out his knee, wiped out his entire junior season. When you lose your junior season, your recruitment's done. Like that's because that's the most important season as far as your recruitment goes for high major players. And he missed his entire junior season, came back, dominated as a senior. West Virginia showed interest, and so did Illinois, Iowa State, Louisville. So like it's not a one-off guy here. Hamady's a guy that visited earlier in the fall, unofficial, picked up an offer. Coaches loved his development during his first four games of senior season. So he was back for an official. And Russell, um, he picked up an offer from Nebraska in the summer. And my understanding, I haven't heard this from Russell, but my understanding from speaking with other guys in the business is that he was planning on committing to Nebraska, and then Nebraska basically just filled up, and he was kind of left out to dry. So speed guy, 10, 10, 5, 5 in the 100-meter dash, guy that can play on that back end. So West Virginia kind of likes him too as a late ad. And to be honest, Mike, I posted this on the board and it immediately was like, so let's talk about coaching instead. But I'll say it again on here. Feel pretty good about West Virginia's chances with all three. Like it's again, I don't know how the recruiting department, the coaches are navigating recruiting with the rumors that swirl, but I think West Virginia will get at least two, probably all three of these guys eventually, with signing day
9 days away.
9 days away. Yeah.
I just, oh boy, this we've not covered a coaching change in this new recruiting calendar.
Yeah.
That's wild, man. If we do indeed cover a coaching change,
Yes.
man, crazy.
All right, now are you ready to pivot?
Let's pivot. Um,
Okay.
how would you describe West Virginia's history with MTEs? I just feel like the fields haven't been great.
Yeah, and usually they always have like those one or two games that are a part of the METs, but they're in Morgantown and they're against just god awful teams, I feel like.
Mhm.
And then they go into it, or it's just teams that are involved with it. This is this the most loaded one that they've played in?
I think I'm trying to go back in my head. I was trying to do this yesterday, and I was looking at the fields this year. Like the Maui Invitational is better. This might be the second best. Maybe like there's a conversation for that. But the other part is like usually when they go to these tournaments, the brackets in shambles, and they end up playing like Portland State for the title. They're going to get Gonzaga and then either Indiana or Louisville. That's three pretty big names. And then on the other side of that could be Arizona, Providence, Davidson. I'm trying to remember the other school. Um, but four decent programs over there too.
Oklahoma, right? Did you say
Oklahoma, yeah.
Oklahoma?
So like they're on the better side of the bracket when it comes to names. They're going to get two good games against two good teams, two good names, and then if you end up playing like Providence, which could be dangerous because they're going to get their star player back. If you end up playing Davidson, that's usually I mean, different coaching staff now, but same idea. It's usually a pretty disciplined team. Not fun to play non-conference. Like, there's good games there too. So there's not like there is no Portland State in there. There is no, buy-in game or anything like that. You play two on campus and you go and you play somebody. Like you're gonna get three good games in 3 good days. Like, and that doesn't seem to happen very often.
No, I mean there's a very real scenario. And this would be losing the first game, winning the second game, and then playing in the third, whether it's win or loss, of West Virginia going Gonzaga, Indiana, Arizona.
Pretty good.
Like, I mean, the likelihood of Arizona losing to Davidson probably pretty small, but still, like, because yeah, you're right. The upper half of the bracket of Louisville, Indiana, West Virginia, and Gonzaga seems slightly tougher than Oklahoma, Providence, Davidson, and Arizona.
Hmm.
So, but
I mean,
either
I'm
way,
looking
they're
through some
playing
of these
Louisville or Indiana in the second game.
great
So,
games. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm looking through some of these in the past. Like here's one in Vegas. They played Iowa and then Kentucky. That's pretty good. But like
yeah.
Iowa and Kentucky were not Iowa and Kentucky at that time. Um, Vanderbilt, Minnesota names, but like, would you be pumped about playing them? Didn't have one this year. Yeah, just I don't know, just not gonna. Here's Davidson, Oklahoma in 2013. Just not a
Yeah.
great number of mirrors. This is a pretty good one. So, anyways, should be good TV, good stuff like that. Make them work obviously against Gonzaga, and then I'm just most interested to see. I think I'm interested in two things. First 8 minutes against Gonzaga because that could be discouraging or it could be encouraging. And West Virginia's loss against Pitt discouraging. All their other games they've had pretty good starts to games. No one's been a competitor like Gonzaga. I understand that. But what happens there? Because if they're in it, hey man, this might be fun. If they're not, they got to be more resilient than they have been. Like we talked about their good starts and some great stretches they've had. They've kind of faded when they've lost it and haven't really gotten all the way back. And that's natural sometimes when you're beating a team pretty good. And never really got into it once they got behind at Pitt. So I'm curious in that. And then first 8 minutes or whatever, just what happens in the second game because they've not done this. They've not done back to backs. If they lose that first game, I think they played earlier the next day because you're not going to be televised in a consolation game, or you're not going to be a priority for television in a consolation game. So short turnaround, guys will be tired. So how do you manage the second game in the first game? That'll be fun to watch with DeVries. We don't really know. Then how do the players handle maybe a loss, more likely than not a loss, and rebounding and playing well to make sure you do everything you can to win that second game because you don't want to go 0-3. You go 0-3, Chris, and then man, just the postseason becomes really difficult to reach. It's far, far away. I understand they may improve and play in a way that makes my math completely relevant. They go 0-3, like they're in serious trouble at the moment for a postseason bid, which is crazy to say.
I just pulled up Ken Palm real quick, and like I joked about Providence and Davidson, and one, I mean, first off, Oklahoma's top 50 right now, so
Mhm.
that's not a gimme. West Virginia's 71st, just to put it in perspective. Providence right there, 75th. Davidson is 116. So that's down there a little bit, but they're 4-0 and they played a bad schedule. So I think it's kind of hard to really gauge what they are or what they can be at this point. I mean, it's not the Steph Curry Davidson, but
Mhm.
they could be at least competitive. Yeah, 2:30 on Wednesday. You lose, you play at 2:30 again. You
Is
win,
that
you
so?
play at
Okay.
noon. It says you win, you play at noon. What? You the winner plays earlier?
So just disregard everything I just said,
Well, that doesn't make any
as
I mean,
usual.
that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, why would you do that?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
But for TV, that noon spot might be prime real estate for somebody.
Right, what is it? Oh yeah, that's Thursday. That's Thanksgiving.
Hmm.
Noon. Catch people right before they eat. What time do you eat Thanksgiving dinner?
Oh,
You
we're in
like
that
a
like 3 o'clock range. Yeah.
yeah, okay. Just making sure. So yeah, gotta get people like you and me on the basketball game before you start eating.
Mhm. Uh, Keys for Gonzaga. I'm not saying let's do a preview here, but I mentioned the first 8 minutes intrigued me. Anything personnel wise or just West Virginia wise?
I'm curious the Toby Okani minutes
Mm.
I'm gonna watch closely. Not that I'm doubting like that I think he's a bust or anything like that, but I want to see what he is and can be. Because in my mind, he was always a guy that was more of a not really an offensive threat, but a guy that they could just have go to the rim. Hey, just you're cutting to the basket. You're kind of our finisher. You're getting some offensive rebounds. You're doing the dirty work. Out of the five guys that are on the court with that starting five, you're the guy that's fifth, definitively fifth out of the five guys. And the first, the Pitt UMass back to back again, like against Robert Morris and Iona, like whatever. Those are blowouts. You're winning by 30, 40 points. The two state games, he won a combined 3 of 13 from the floor, airballed a couple free throws, um, 7 fouls, couple turnovers. And what Pitt, he only played 15 minutes. And
Mm.
again, that was a blowout the other way, but I want to see what his role is. If you're asking me to get very specific about personnel stuff here, this tournament, maybe not specifically to Gonzaga, is very important, I think, in the what is and who is Toby Okani for West Virginia.
Yeah, and like him and Harris haven't been lining up offensively. If you have two great shooters or two great defenders out there, that's fine. It puts a lot of offensive responsibility on Small and DeVries, so one of them would be better. And you could make a switch by putting Powell in, but then you lose some juice off the bench unless you get um, Stone back sometime soon. Who knows how rusty he'll be? But yeah, I think you're right. Those him for sure, and then Harris can he get a shot to go and fall down. Were they were supposed to play in this tournament in 2020, right? That became
West
the
Virginia?
yeah, they were supposed to go to the Bahamas in 2020. COVID happened, and they ended up playing like in like South Dakota, I think. Remember that? And they couldn't find
Yeah,
anybody
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
play the Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Classic or something like that.
Yeah,
um,
but that one that was in 2020, that one was going to be loaded. That was Duke,
yeah,
Ohio State, and I mean I can't remember who else, but it was Memphis too. Like and I believe that was when Memphis was like really good or was
who was
expected
it?
to be
Yeah, and they
really
ended
good.
up getting like South Dakota State. I think there was a middle school in there too. I'm not positive. I have to go back and double check. But yeah, I mean nobody wanted to or could do anything at that time. So I get right there. And they played like preseason in the Bahamas a couple years before that too. God, that may
Wait,
be
yeah,
10. That
hold
may
on,
be
because
10 years
that
ago now.
was and now I got to look it up because that was like they moved it from the Bahamas to South Dakota, and the teams were supposed to stay in it. Like it was supposed to be the same teams.
Yeah, they had issues.
And yeah, guys started dropping out, all that stuff. Because that was the same year. I believe that was the same year. Yeah, that one of the other games got canceled, and Huggins just called up Mark Few and was like, "Hey," or called up ESPN and was like, "Hey, we'll play Gonzaga. Let's do it."
Mm-hmm.
And
In
and
Indianapolis, right?
yeah. So, but instead of Duke, here I'm just pulling it up here. And instead of Duke, Memphis, Ohio State, Texas A&M, Creighton, and some others, I can't see who all was in it, ended up in it, but I can see who West Virginia played. West Virginia played South Dakota State, VCU, and Western Kentucky.
Did they lose to Western Kentucky in the final?
No, they went 3-0, right?
Did they really?
According to this. Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't remember that one. Shoosh. Yeah. So hey, they
Was
finally
that
get
was I
their
think that
trip to
was
the
the Western
Bahamas.
Kentucky where they had a big center that was pretty good. Yeah, Bassey.
Passy.
And but when you got Derek Culver, Bassey can't handle that.
Could not. Good team.
Hmm.
What a weird season that was. That ends in the dome and what Syracuse, I believe, right?
Yep.
Ooh,
Second round.
in
Yuck.
Indianapolis, right?
75, 75, 72, Midwest region.
Yep, Syracuse, Indianapolis. Everybody played the tournament in that city that year. That was boy, what a weird time that was. Ooh, it happened. Yeah. So hey, weird times all over the place. What's what's past is prologue, I guess. A little bit weirder for different reasons now. Full week coming up on the site here. Neil Brown later than normal before players and coaches today, but we expect him to be
Mm.
at the news conference. And then on the sideline Saturday, West Virginia, Texas Tech. We'll cover all that in our preview episode coming up. The site will be alive this week. I'm pretty sure everybody will be around their tables, but we'll still be doing our job right there. Anything you want to add, Chris?
Nope. Again, look for some recruiting updates. I gave some positive, you know, outlook for those three guys. Look for updates from all three of them in the next couple days. Give a little breakdown with 1 week to go. Maybe some more official visitors this week. Obviously, the expedited calendar here for recruiting with December 4th being signing day makes it very difficult. You only have a couple weekends to really have official visitors. And this weekend's Thanksgiving. But I was told by people that some midweek visitors, some Monday, Tuesday visitors, Tuesday, Wednesday type visitors get in before Thanksgiving, especially those junior college kids whose seasons are over and their schools are out for the entire week of Thanksgiving, be making their way up to West Virginia. So keep an eye out for some more, not surprises. I've already put the names on the board, but some more official visitors this week.
Sounds good. We'll have that. We'll have some questions that need answers. We'll have Brown's news conference and basketball stories, and then just try to keep everything together on the football beat for as long as we can. Until then,
Yeah.
I'm Mike Casazza.
And I'm Chris Anderson.
We will talk to you then.